Yeah, that shouldn't make any difference.
So it should know your intent then?
I've got the list of stuff here. What do I hit to change the screen? It's not the mirroring thing, right?
Oh, that's the mirror image. I think you want under audio or camera. On my screen, I've got a drop-down menu under audio, video, and under camera. Mine doesn't have a front camera though, so it doesn't give me that option.
Your iPad doesn't have a front camera?
I'm not on my iPad. I'm just on my laptop.
That's an
Oh,
Android.
okay. Sorry.
I don't know. I hate iPhones.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how to change that camera, so.
It's different on Zoom. Let's see if I
Yeah.
can figure it out.
Steve Brooks.
You know, I can see everything here. The only thing you can't see is me. So is that a problem?
No, and we can hear y'all right now too, boss. So I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I think so too. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, sorry about that. We knew that Amy Ann had a problem with doing the planning commission moving downstairs, and we thought we had it all figured out. So apologize for the delay, finding that no two iPads are alike. So okay, I see Councillor Arnold, Councillor Stevens, I believe, is here. Councillor Hilton, Councillor Ellis, are you here?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call this work session to order, Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. Move first to public comment. I think you probably saw Shaylee put all the letters and emails that we've received are in the packet, so they'll be in your packets for you. We won't read those during public comments. So.
I did receive one letter, so I can read that if you want during public comment, but other than that, I haven't received anything.
That'll be fine. Yeah, if you'll read that one in our council meetings. So. Okay, move on. Is there any other public comment you're aware of, Shaylee, other than that?
No, I did have Channel 2 News reach out to me last time, but I don't know if they're still planning on coming tonight.
Okay, we'll find out then. Move on to the mayor's report. The only thing that I have, and I'll quickly mention this, I talked to Bill here a couple weeks ago. We were talking about COVID-19 and where we're at as far as precautions we're taking. One of the things we talked about was looking at starting our in-person meetings back, the first meeting in June for city council. We'd like you to think about that. You okay with that? Be good to be back. I know in our sewer board meeting last night, that's what they did. They did the same thing starting in June. They'll have it back. So you got probably a month and a half to get your shots if you don't have them. So move on next, city administration report. Do you have any questions for Bill? Bill, do you have any comments on that?
No additional comments from me, unless people have questions. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions? Move on next to the consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from April 6th, 2021, the council work session, and also the council meeting on the same date. Do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
Mayor, I had a couple.
Okay.
I'm going to try and remember what they were. So, in the work session, there's two different discretionary item sections. The first one starts off okay, but then it doesn't really make any mention of Councilor Stevens had a discussion about some trailers on Riverdale Road. Then after that, at the end, there's another set of discretionary items, and that never occurred in the work session. Those are kind of duplicates of what is in the main meeting. And so those probably need to be removed. And then I guess I have a correction on the RDA, but we can discuss that when we get to the RDA meeting.
Okay. Any other changes or corrections? Okay, thank you. Okay, move on next to our action items. First is consideration ordinance 933. This is the approval of proposed rezone request for mobile home park recreational vehicle park zone, RMH1 zoning to multiple family residential R4 zoning for property located approximately 671 West, 4400 South, being requested by applicant H&H at 39th Street LLC. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as you noted, H&H 39th Street LLC is the applicant. They're represented tonight by Matthew Steiner, who will be available to share their side of what's going on and their thoughts, as well as answer any questions that will come up relative to this item. The desire is to look at future development opportunities possibly for this property in the form of other multiple family residential unit uses that could be explored, as noted in their explanation that's attached to their application. The property is 4.62 acres of land, and there's different zoning around it to the form of RMH1, R5, and C3 zoning. The request came before the Planning Commission on the 23rd of March 2021 for a public hearing. During the public hearing, there were multiple comments, thoughts, and ideas that were shared, and you have minutes in your packet reflecting those comments in brief format. Also, we did receive multiple telephone inquiries prior to the public hearing, and we did meet all state and city requirements for noticing the public hearing prior to that. At the conclusion of the public hearing, we had some technical difficulties internally with the applicant. The applicant dropped off the call, and the matter was tabled. It was later brought back to the Planning Commission for the April 13th, 2021 meeting, where it was untabled and further discussed. At the conclusion of that meeting, the Planning Commission provided a recommendation to City Council to not approve the requested rezone, with findings provided relative to items found in the general plan, as well as other thoughts and comments they had. And again, those are in the minutes draft if you want to understand those reasoning in more detail. The general plan for this site is currently set as residential medium density. The rezone request and project concept requested use is in questionable compliance with the land use designation. The general plan language for the area of the Riverdale general plan discusses potential conversion of the uses in this area as well. However, the land use master plan definitions.
Excuse me, Mike?
Yeah.
Hey, could you repeat that? Did you just say that the request is in line with what the general plan says?
No, it's in questionable compliance with the land use designation.
It's in questionable compliance?
Yeah.
So that means it's not in compliance?
Well,
It's
it's a
either in
little
compliance or not compliance. It's not.
it's a little unclear because then the general plan language for Area 7 discusses potential conversion of the uses in the area as well. So it creates a little bit of a gray area. But when you look at the residential medium density, the definition of it doesn't line up with the request.
So that's a no, right?
It's more a no than a yes.
Questionable you're thinking in the future, but right now it's a no.
The general plan doesn't support the request.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to support it. You'll see that then the ordinances, you have two different sets of it, one in favor and one, I guess, denying the request. And then you'll see the general plan language that I referenced thereafter. It starts on, I think, page 61 in your packet. You'll see all the general plan references, and I've highlighted those sections that are applicable to the request, as well as provided the map of Area 7. And then you'll see the definition on page 67 of what medium density residential means. A map showing the zone changes and the uses around it, and then the minutes from the Planning Commission, as well as the application thereafter, and then the list showing all of the public hearing notice requirements have been fulfilled by city staff. And with that, I defer to the city council for further questions if there are any at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. On page 67 that you referenced, a second, there is a definition that I'm looking at that, just a second, you have highlighted of MRD, medium density residential. And again, page 67 of the packet, owner occupied, attached, or small lot. Okay. The words owner occupied jump out at me. Is that a requisite of medium density residential?
No, because there's other references to it that show that apartment uses are allowed in small format. So that's a good question. That's something probably we need to update and clarify in future revision of the general plan, because there are other evidences in the R3 that do allow for some apartment use in small capacity areas. So that's a good request or a good question.
I didn't know if that was binding or if that was a gray area. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Move on to action item 2, consideration of resolution 2021-05, a bid approval for 2021 sewer improvement project to MJM Construction in an amount not to exceed $174,776.97. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have anything else to say on that. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Okay, seeing none, moving on to action item number 3. Discussion of and possible action on granting an easement to Rocky Mountain Power for the purpose of installing a newer power line on city property. Mr. Kobabe.
I don't have much more to add to this either, unless there are any questions on this. It's a 10-foot easement that they need to get from the city to run a power line along our property there. So I hope that the comments and explanation in the staff report were clear. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. Move on to action item number 4, consideration of resolution 2021-08, approving Riverdale City Water Conservation Plan update. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. I know most of you have seen this before. It's another one of those items that we work on that the state has us bring back and have the council approval on so that you know what's going on in the city. It's pretty straightforward. Not much has changed from the last one. It's just an updated revision. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them.
I think you said that's coming out of your, already got money to cover it in your budget, right?
Yeah, can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. I read through this. Now, what I didn't have time to do is go through the ordinances that we have for residential, and in talking about the things that can be done to conserve water and, you know, to take your landscapes, and especially in the landscapes in the front yard, which I think our zoning ordinances have some impact as to what you can do or can't do, I guess is a better way to put it. Or I guess this is more of a general question because I didn't have time to go through the ordinances, but is this in compliance so that if people want to make changes specifically for their outside watering landscape usage, it stays in compliance with the ordinances? And it's kind of a broad question, but I think I'd like to have a discussion maybe in the future on that.
I don't see anything that would cross over on the ordinances unless Mike has something, but more or less everything in there should be acceptable for what we have now.
It's what I'm seeing is pretty general, so I'm sure it does. But a couple of years ago when I was campaigning, I knocked a lot of doors and I saw some people, not many, a handful, maybe a dozen or two, that were taking their front yards into kind of a xeriscape or gardening with raised beds for vegetables and flowers and different things, and even fruit trees in the front, which I'm not sure if the fruit trees are compliant. But anyway, that's just an observation. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on that? Okay, any discretionary items for this meeting? Only have
Mayor,
one
before we
item.
go into the next meeting, I figured out how you can switch your camera. So if you push the stop video button, like you're trying to stop your video, you'll see an option on the screen that pops up to reverse your camera.
It says virtual background and says dual camera.
So there should be a little symbol that looks like it's a camera. Are you seeing the stop my video screen?
Yeah.
So up in the top corner of that right-hand side, there's a little camera icon.
That's it. How's that?
It does not have
around.
that. There you go. You're turned around.
It turned me around, so thank you. You're awesome. Okay.
I thought Shaylee was awesome.
He's awesome too.
Shaylee is peachy. There's a
No shortage of awesome around our office.
Let's declare us all awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay, something I'd suggest I think would help where I can't see all of you, and I'm not sure sometimes who makes a motion or who makes the second. When you give a motion or you second a motion, would you just say your last name? Motion to approve Hilton or Arnold or whatever it might be. I think that'll help. That'll be right in the recording for Shaylee, and that'll help her a little bit. Then I won't have to try to figure out who made the motion. I know that helps her on these videos, so that's an ask. So we'll move on next to our RDA board agenda. We have one consent item, that's to approve the meeting minutes from April 6, 2021, the RDA meeting held on that date. Do we have any changes or corrections to that?
Mayor, this is Braden. I have one change to those minutes. Just 1 second.
Can't hear you now.
You just muted yourself after 1 second, Greg.
There we go. So in the discretionary items, it makes reference to Mr. Worthen doing something, and I don't recall that part of the meeting. I don't know if mine clipped out for just a second, but it was probably Mr. Kobabe talking about the tax increment being, if that's supposed to be there anyway, in the next meeting.
I think they made a mention of Roger starting the conversation. In the last meeting, they talked about Roger doing that. I mean, he didn't do it in the last meeting. He did it before.
Beforehand.
Well, it just says Mr. Worthen informed the council the RDA annual increment payments report will be on the next RDA agenda. So
Would you look into that, Shaylee? And wonder if we ought to just make those corrections and bring those minutes back on the next meeting, rather than approve them tonight. That way it give you time, then if you got any questions, you can.
I would be in favor of that. I ended up listening to most of the meeting over the RDA and the other one, trying to figure out what was going on with those discretionary things. So I think some cleaner minutes would be in order.
Okay. I agree. Is that all right, Shaylee? We'll do that. Just put them on the next agenda and they can take a look and see if everything reads. Okay. Okay, any other changes or corrections? Move on next. We got one action item tonight. First, we have a public hearing, which we talked about in our last meeting, to receive and consider comments regarding a budget amendment for the RDA Riverdale Landing Project. So we have a public hearing, and the next item B, consideration of resolution 2021-01, amending the budget for the RDA Riverdale Landing Project. You want to talk about this, Mr. Kobe? I know we went over this pretty good in our last RDA meeting 2 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to this, Mayor. I think that we've talked about it. Unless anyone has any questions, I think we can wait till the actual meeting if there's any other discussion.
Bill and Mayor, I just wanted to let you know in the council, Jeff Randall will represent the developer's interest, D. Hansen's interest in this. D. Hansen won't be joining us tonight, so just FYI.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Bill? Move on. Any discretionary for this meeting? We have a motion to adjourn our work session.
So moved.
Second, Mitchell.
Oh, so moved, Alan. Arnold.
Yeah, I'll take old practice. So, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. We'll move next to our we're going to take just a 5-minute break, even though we're late. I left my other agenda downstairs. So.
Yeah, is it up there?
See if 5-0 can run it up to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call this city council meeting to order Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. For the record, all city council members are present. We also have members of the staff. We welcome anyone that might be here with us for public comment or those who are also observing on YouTube. So we appreciate your attendance here. I had planned to be in the council room. We tried that tonight. There were some technical difficulties. Wasn't able to stay down there because we had a lot of echoing with the sound. So we had to move up back out of range. So
Mayor, do you want to turn your camera on? We just see that your name's on there and your camera's off.
Just start your video.
that's interesting because I didn't touch anything when I left. So.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, but I think it's better that you hear me than see me. So picture's not always that great. So. Well, could I get you, would you please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me tonight? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to now take a moment of silence. As we take a moment of silence this evening, we would ask that you remember those who serve in our military, that serve to protect the many freedoms of this great nation we live in. We would ask you to remember our first responders, our firefighters, and our police officers, those who protect the peace and service here, putting their harms in the way on a daily basis. We would ask you to remember them. Also remember City Council tonight as they make decisions, that they might make decisions that are in the best interest of those that they serve. We'll now take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Going to move on next to the public comment period. I think first, Shayla Misnay has a letter that she'd like to read that was sent in for public comment.
I also have members of the public here as well.
Okay.
So the letter I have is from Jenny Nagy. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry. My name is Jenny. I live at 1418. Is it echoing? A little bit. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I live at 1418 Botong Street in Ogden, Utah. I ask the City Council to please consider the following as you make your recommendation about the proposed rezone of Leslie's Mobile Home Park. First, when asked about harmony with the general plan, The rezone application states, Riverdale City's general housing plan calls for safe, accessible, sanitary, and aesthetically pleasing homes. The gentrification... Is everybody muted? Sorry, it's really bad. Let me just make sure everybody's muted. There's a call-in user. Let me mute them. Hold on one sec. Okay, hopefully that helps. Okay. All right. The gentrification of this property and development of new multifamily housing will help reach those goals. The quote is taken out of context and is misappropriation. The full quote from the general plan states, ensure an adequate supply of safe, accessible, sanitary, and aesthetically pleasing moderate income housing integrated throughout the city in various locations and consistent with the needs of all segments of the population. Residents have made it very clear that the loss of the park would leave them without affordable housing options in Riverdale. The general plan states an explicit goal to provide affordable housing for all segments of the population. This provides strong support that maintaining mobile home park zoning is most consistent with the general plan. Second, I want to remind you of the Utah Legislature's joint resolution encouraging manufactured and mobile home parks as affordable housing. This resolution states the legislature of the state of Utah recognizes manufactured housing as an important part of affordable housing choices and options encourages including manufactured housing in local land use planning and development. Finally, as the Planning Commission has recommended against the rezone, I ask you to follow this recommendation. Thank you.
You're still muted, Mayor.
Did what you told me and muted it, Shaylee.
So I was trying to get it to where, because Councilmember Stevens said he would like to see who's ever talking, but on my side, it's not allowing me to actually just have my screen showing. Just give me 1 second. Hopefully, I had it figured out, but now it's not working for me. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, we did have additional letters and emails that came in. I think that was back, some of those are as far back as the first public hearing that was held. Those have all been put in the packet. City council packet has gone out to all the city council members, and it's also gone, it's public on our website also. So those letters are out for everyone to see and read. So let you know that. We're next going to open our public comment period here in the city council room. This is an opportunity to address the city council regarding your concerns or ideas. No action will be taken during public comment. We would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we would also ask, if you would, as you make your comments, if you would express your concerns that you might have, but maybe not repeat those concerns of those who have made comment ahead of you. So try to keep the repetition down a little bit if we can, and try to identify each of the different concerns that the public has in this regard. So if you'd please state your name when you come to the microphone. Again, please limit your time to 3 minutes. Thank you.
If you want to speak?
Has the council reviewed what we've already said in the past?
Yes.
Okay. If their representative for the owner is going to speak, can he speak now so we might have a chance to?
He'll speak on the actual item itself and not during public comment, so they'll ask him to speak when the item comes up.
Who are they asking for, Shaylee? I can't.
The owner of the property, but I just said that they would be speaking during the action item itself.
Okay.
And then I don't have anybody that wants to speak.
All right, thank you. Then we'll close the public comment period. Move on to presentations and reports. we're looking at trying to start our first in-person city council meeting back in the first meeting in June. So we're kind of headed that way, and unless there's a change in the transmission of the COVID-19. So moving on next, city administration report. Mr. Kobe, do you have anything on this?
I did just want to recognize the anniversaries for this month, if that's all right, Mayor.
Go ahead.
We have from the fire department, Paul Flagg has 38 years with the city, if you can believe that. I can't even remember what I was doing 38 years ago, and probably don't want to mention it if I could. So we're proud of him for that. That's quite an achievement. Next, we've got Chief Brankman with 22 years, and Casey Warren has 17 years, which again is fantastic. Great work over there in the PD. Mike Eggett, 8 years, community development. Amy Wright over in community services has 6 years. Angie Pierce with business administration has 5 years in this month. And then we've got Brecklin Choate over at community services with 3 years, and Gerardo Vasquez with the PD also with 3 years. So proud of these folks, proud of their commitment to the city and their dedication to the departments that they work for, and to the rest of the employees. We've got a great staff of people, as evidenced by this longevity, and the institutional knowledge that they bring is helping us to stay a community of distinction, and I'm grateful for them, and I know that you guys are too. So congratulations to all of those that have anniversaries this month.
You have any questions or for Mr. Kobe on the report? Okay, moving on next, consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes. We did note some changes and corrections in our work session. Do we have any other changes or corrections since we went out of that meeting? I think what we decided to do is, if you don't have anything else, we will anyway go ahead and we'll put that on a future agenda after these corrections have been made. So that'll be seen again here probably first part of May. So move on to action item number 1. This is consideration of ordinance 933. This is approval of proposed rezone request for mobile home park recreational vehicle park zone RMH1 zoning to multiple family residential, R4 zoning for property located approximately 671 West, 4400 South in Riverdale, as requested by applicant H&H 39th Street LLC. Mr. Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. H&H 39th Street LLC is represented tonight by Mr. Matthew Steiner, who has joined us. As you noted, the request is for the rezone of RMH1 zoning to R4, and the acreage for the property request is 4.62 acres of land at this location. The zoning around the property includes RMH1, R5, and C3 zoning, and then it's bounded by some streets being Riverdale Road and 700 West. On March 23rd, 2021, a public hearing was held with the Planning Commission, wherein members of the public provided comments, thoughts, and ideas. At the conclusion of that public hearing, the Planning Commission started to deliberate on the item. We had some technical issues, and the applicant representative was not able to rejoin us in that meeting. As a result, the meeting was tabled, and the decision was brought back on April 13th, 2021, where it was untabled and further discussed by the Planning Commission with the applicant. Following discussion in the matter, the Planning Commission provided a recommendation to the City Council to not approve the requested rezone, with findings provide further decision-making as found within the minutes in your packet. The general plan guidance for this property, or for this area, which is Area 7 of the Land Use Master Plan, provided in your packet. The definition of residential medium density does not seem to support the request as it relates to that designation and other commentary found in the packet. Although there are some areas in Area 7 that discuss potential conversion of uses in this area for other residential options or other uses. Following the executive summary, you'll see that the two ordinance documents are in here, one for approval, one for denial of the rezone request. The general plan guidance documentation that starts on page 61 in your packet and continues on until page 67. Thereafter, you'll see that there's the a map showing the change that's being requested in some of the surrounding zoning. Minutes from the previous two planning commission meetings, which are the draft minutes, and then the application thereafter follows. And finally, we have the public hearing checklist showing all staff efforts to be in compliance with state and city regulations regarding public hearing. That's everything I have to share, and I would defer to Mr. Steiner to further discuss and share his thoughts with the Planning Commission relative to what he's doing at this point. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I have some stuff I could share, and I think, am I allowed to share, Shaylee?
You should be able to present. Let me double check on your screen.
Mayor, can we have some discussion before we get into too much into this?
Go ahead, Mr. Arnold.
If we could, the R4 does not fit the general plan in this area, and we have the ability to change that. You know, the general plan is more binding on the planning commission because they should never deviate from it. But the city council writes it and can change it whenever we feel the city needs it, but we have not changed it. And so, you know, I think one of the things that we're discussing is to bring this into an R4. It doesn't fit in the general plan as yet, and we should talk about it in a strategic planning meeting or another council meeting or something to where we actually change the general plan so an R4 actually fits. This would just be, you know, 5 guys determining to change something that the general plan does not support, and I don't see why it's even made it this far. I think you know, Mr. Eggett probably pointed it out to the application applicant to say this doesn't fit here under the current guidelines, and to even come this far is just, I mean, it's a waste of time, and the general plan is there to guide us as council members change and things like that. It guides us into what we do. We shouldn't have the ability to just change it in a meeting today because of whatever this plan or this idea is. If they want that change, they need to come forth, change the general plan so it fits within what we're doing. And then we're actually making decisions that are actually beneficial to the city, but in line with the city as people know the general plan.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Just to be on the record, this is television, not radio, but Mr. Eggert was nodding his head yes while I was saying that he made that clear to the applicant. Correct, Mike?
Yes, I have discussed that with the applicants to clarify that.
Well,
Should I go ahead
maybe
and talk a little bit about it now, or?
yeah, I think it'd be good, Mr. Steiner, if you talked a little about it, because I know there are some things that you and Mr. Hatch have talked about, and there's concerns. There's the R4 doesn't quite fit, and the R3 doesn't quite fit, and there's kind of a toss-up in between. And I think Mr. Steiner's got some thoughts here. Maybe let him just go ahead and mention what their thoughts are and what they're looking at. So I know I was when we talked about it. Yeah, the planning commission. We were with Mr. Brooks, and the H&H people, and I guess the planning commission cannot recommend it, but the city council still has the right to overturn that. And I think they wanted to go ahead and present their case and what their objectives are in that area, and then at least present that to the council. So I think we'll go ahead and let Mr. Steiner do his part there.
One thing for context, one of the things that precipitated the application when we submitted it recently was some city action, code violations and such that go on in the current situation at the park. There's lots of housing there that's not safe and is not code compliant. And the city has noted that and, given notice to the ownership to try and correct some of those problems. And so for those, I imagine all of you have been over around in that area, that's a problem property and it needs to change how it's being operated and how the housing situation over there, it's not good from a crime standpoint or from a code violation standpoint or safe housing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really difficult for the owner to continue to operate in the current situation. And so a meeting was held and discussed of what could happen, and the use needs to change on that property. One of the difficulties is you can't move those mobile homes. And when we bring new ones in, the length of the lots do not allow for the new mobile homes to come in, the new manufactured housing. The width is okay for modern units, but the length is not. And so one of the things that happens when the landowner turns over tenants is there's RVs coming in, which do not tend to be better than what was there. It tends to be worse from a tenant standpoint, from a landlord standpoint. Anyway, that gives context for why the applicant that I represent came forward at this point in time. And we worked with Mr. Eggett and talked through it and understood the situation from a master plan and a zoning standpoint, and looking at the different options. R4 was what gets to where the property owner wants to get. And so we went to the planning commission, and Mr. Brooks advised them and kind of explained how their role is to evaluate things against the master plan, like you pointed out. And so they're in kind of a bind to really consider what's beyond the zone change. That's what they do. And so it comes to you, who have the power to change the master plan and to change the zoning and to allow something different to happen there, that we feel from a landowner standpoint and from a city standpoint will be a positive. There's been a lot of negative energy during the planning commission hearings, but this will be a very positive property for the city, in our opinion. And from the landowner standpoint, it will be a very positive investment and an improvement to the land. And what I was starting to share is we have some photos of a concept of what could be done here. It's a similar project that was built in Boise along a river. And so it's a very good example of what could happen there along the river, there in Riverdale, from a floodplain standpoint and that kind of thing. And it's basically 120 units on a similar sized property. And I'll share that now, if that's okay. And I can also answer questions at this point, now that I've talked about the context of why we're bringing it forward. Does that show up for you?
Hey, Mayor, we just had a discussion about this in our last meeting or so, about discussing site plans when we're doing a rezone request. I think it was Councilor Stevens that objected to talking about site plans when we're doing rezones.
And this is not a site plan for this site. This is just something that could happen under R4 on that size. And we pulled it up from one of our partners that did this type of a project. This gives you an idea of what 120 units looks like on a similar type site next to a river. So I'm not trying to say this is a site plan or it in any way represents what would actually end up there yet, but it's an idea that the landowner and their development partner have for the very initial concept of what could happen. And on this one, the parking is underneath the apartments, above ground parking underneath, as well as surface parking, so that it can deal with floodplain. Now, I know that gets into more detail than we are talking about here during a rezone, but that's the only reason we're showing this, is to give some context for discussion, I guess, of what a rezone would mean for us. I can unshare it or I can leave it. I don't know what you want me to do, but.
I think that's good, Mr. Steiner. We just wanted to kind of show them what you've got in mind for that. Something similar, not like say that's not a site plan.
And our real push is to have a rezone so that from a landowner standpoint, we can have some direction to move forward. That we're in the very initial stages. We have not done any preliminary drawings or anything on this site. But the idea is to have a direction that we can start looking at how to move forward. You know, there's state laws about timing and such on mobile home parks, and we want to be compliant with all that and must be compliant with all that. But we want some direction to move forward so that we know if our objective is to continue running as a mobile home park permanently, or if there's some opportunity over the next, 12 months or so to start moving towards a change in this project. Because it really is precipitated by the fact that this is not an okay operation as it sits right now. I don't think from the city standpoint or from the for sure from the landowner standpoint, it's not working out. It's not safe, and it's not working. Not able to collect rent on many of the sites. We're always in the middle of evictions, which causes problems, and it's an ongoing problem from a landowner standpoint. And I know that's not the city council's problem. It's ours, the landowner's problem, and we're dealing with that. But that's the motivation for wanting a rezone to R4.
I'll just maybe interject something, and I hope it's appropriate, Mr. Steiner, but I know in the meeting that we were in with you, I know that we talked about R3, we talked about other potential zones, and I probably, in fairness to you, I know you didn't mention it, but the R3, the number of units that they could put in there on 3 just doesn't quite make it so that it's profitable as to what they're investing into this.
And it doesn't make it as nice of a project for the eventual tenants that would come here. If we can get over the 110 up to about the 120 frame point, we can put in a nice pool and nice fitness facility, kind of amenities for the project to justify across that number of units. Maybe that's what the mayor is talking about. It. If you get to that level in the R4, then it could be a much nicer project for the eventual tenants than what an R3 would allow on this site, because the density is not high enough to justify, pool and clubhouse and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steiner. Do you have any questions for Mr. Steiner? Thank you. Mr. Arnold's raised a point. Do we have any more discussion on this as far as the general plan? I know it's, from what I've seen and what I've read, it's vague as to R4 and R3 as far as which one fits the best in here. So just, is there any other discussion on this?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr.
I'd make a motion to deny ordinance 933 and go along with the Planning Commission's recommendation to not approve rezone at this time. As not part of the motion, as a comment on the motion. Oh, on Arnold, sorry. And the comment, I would honestly love to see the project. I agree with everything that Mr. Steiner has said about the property, but I think we have an obligation to follow the general plan. And if we change the general plan and that's the way it goes, I think that's a beautiful operation. And, you know, I'm owner's rights. I'm an advocate of owner's rights, but this is not correct with us as the city council the way we should operate and have operated in the past. So I would make a motion to deny the rezone request at this time.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to deny the request?
Grant?
Okay, second, Councilor Ellis. All in favor? Excuse me, it's an ordinance. Would you do a roll call vote, Ms. Nay, please?
Councilmember Ellis,
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold,
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Unanimous in favor of denying the request. So, move on next to action item number 2. This is consideration of resolution 2021-05. This is a bid approval for 2021 sewer improvement project to MJM Construction in an amount not to exceed $174,776.97. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. So this project was looked at previously for a liner project, put a liner inside of the pipeline and save tearing it up, but the condition of the pipes and also the bellies, the depth of the bellies in it doesn't allow us to do that. So this is a total reconstruct on this section. I think you have all the numbers in the bid packet there, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them for you.
Mayor, this is Braden. I had one question.
Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
Hey, so Sean, I noticed there's quite a wide variation in the amounts of the bids, kind of more than I'm used to seeing, and so, you know, that always concerns you that someone's just gonna, you know, lowball it or something to get it. And then, have we worked with that? Is it MSM? Let's see.
It's MJM, yeah.
So I personally, and we as a city, as far as I know, have not worked with them, but one of the engineers at CNC Engineering has worked with them previously and said they were okay to work with. And I out of the references they checked, they didn't have anything that brought up anything negative. So it's one of those ones where it's like sometimes we have to try somebody. You know, I don't know. I didn't see anything that was a red flag on them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I just, you know, we obviously trust you, but sometimes I know you kind of feel like you need to go with the lowest bid, but if you're not comfortable, make sure you feel free to let us know that.
I would always try and do that. This one, I don't have a lot of information one way or the other than the engineer up there that I spoke with, and then also the background checks that they did, you know, as far as references and that. So I'm always nervous when we use somebody new too. It causes loss of sleep. So I just didn't see
I think that some of the variation that we're seeing in these bid tabs is due to the volatility in the market. A lot of people still want to bid for these things and maybe want to get the work, but because the market is what it is right now, it's just going nuts, and some people are hungry and wanting to buy the project, and other people are just throwing a number at it to see if it sticks. So I think that's kind of where we're at with it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there was a big difference, Counselor Mitchell, and I think there was like $100,000 difference from low to the higher bid, so that's a good point to bring up. Thank you. Any other discussion on this?
Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve Arnold Resolution 2021-5, bid to approve the 2021 sewer improvement project to MJM Construction in the amount not to exceed $174,776.97.
Second, Hilton.
Here we have a motion. We have a second. Would you do a roll call, Ms. May, on this resolution, please?
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold,
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Ellis.
Aye.
It's unanimous in favor. The resolution passes. Move on to action item number 3. This is discussion of and possible action on granting an easement to Rocky Mountain Power for the purpose of installing a new power line on city property. Mr. Cobabe.
Thank you, Mayor. The city was approached by Rocky Mountain Power in anticipation of developing further structures and facilities at the Innovation Center. It's actually in Riverdale, so we're going to call it the Riverdale Innovation Center, in spite of what the official name of the place may be. So welcome to Riverdale, all of you that work at the Innovation Center. They needed to get an easement from the city to run power lines. There will be underground power lines through some property that the city owns there. It's the property with the 2 water tanks on it, if you're familiar with that, up above the canal. So in light of that need and in understanding that there will be some compensation, in my staff report, the amount that they are going to give to the city, it doesn't appear. The amount that they are proposing to give to the city is $11,177.54 in compensation for the easement to be granted by the city. So if that amount is acceptable, and if it's acceptable, the staff is recommending approval of the proposed easement.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Cobabe or comments?
Mr. Kobe,
Yes.
Is there any need for us to have power up there? That we can have something tapped in or something as they're putting the power in up there?
There is power already to the site. My guess is that we would just split off of what's already there. This is a pretty high voltage line. So I think it's a 12.7 kilovolt line that would be installed there. So it's meant to supply a very large building, and I don't think that our needs would be that much. Sean, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think that we're probably okay as far as power goes. Yeah, I think we're okay.
Mayor, this is Braden.
Go ahead, Braden.
So is this just an approval of the easement? I was trying to see if it's not a resolution or it's just
It's just approval, yeah. It says possible action. I think if you're in favor, we can go ahead and approve this. It isn't a resolution or doesn't require a roll call vote from what I can see.
It's just a consensus. Is that what we think?
Granting the easement.
I think you just go, it says possible action, so I think probably opens the door. You could go ahead and approve it or disapprove it. Or Mr. Brooks, do you have any comments?
No, it's just, it doesn't rise to the level that I felt we needed to do a resolution on it. It's just one of those things that And actually, this is the stuff you guys don't ever see. Sean and I have been fighting with these guys for probably over a year now because we didn't like what they were doing. I mean, they just come in, they said, give us this easement with no compensation. We're going to put it where we want just because it was the easiest path for them to follow. And we made it really clear from the outset that we got to limit the size. We wanted some compensation because they never give us anything for free was kind of our theory on the thing, you know. But and we weren't worried about the amount, but the biggest concern was if we ever had a third tank up there, we have to have the authority and power to move this easement if that line's in the way, and we have to add that third tank. We don't have anywhere else we could put that. So that was a big deal, and we've been fighting with this for, I think it's easily a year. Sean, probably even longer than that. Just since I've been involved, it's probably a year. So we finally whittled it down and got to where we're comfortable with it, and just need your blessing on it. We feel comfortable with it now. They finally complied with the things we wanted, and so. But again, I don't think it rose to the level of resolution. We just need a consensus on it.
All right. Well, this is Mitchell, and I recommend that we approve it. I move that we approve the easement.
Arnold, second.
Hilton, third.
Can I make a comment or ask some questions, please, as Bart?
Go ahead, Mr. Stephen.
Thank you. I'm still somewhat unclear on a couple of things, and that is you called the Innovation Center Riverdale, and I guess I'm not real understanding of the federal reservation or the Air Force Base, whatever you want to call it, and the city boundaries. And in the map, by the way, was kind of hard for me to differentiate. Is the easement on the federal reservation, or is it outside the federal reservation line or Hill Air Force Base line, however you want to classify that, into what is, because it says it's Riverdale city property, and you're not calling, because you're using terms that are a little confusing to me, because you say the Innovation Center's in Riverdale.
It is.
Is it so? Is it in Riverdale but still on the reservation, a federal reservation?
The federal reservation's on Riverdale city property is what it is.
Okay,
so the incorporated boundary of Riverdale City involves several or quite a few acres of the federal reservation. This property, I believe, is not involved in that at all. This is to the north of the MITA controlled, the Hill Air Force Base controlled property, just to the north of that. So I think that we're outside of that, but it is still city property. It's owned by the city, and it's within the city limits.
Okay.
Yeah, the Roy Innovation Center, the Roy Gate, and the museum are all in Riverdale City. Just for
so technically, if they bracked Hill Air Force Base, then Riverdale would have claim to those lands.
That's right, and those buildings too, and everything will all be in Riverdale City. So. Yep.
I didn't mean to pick that scab. I probably shouldn't have just not even mentioned that, but that's a sore subject for me, and I know for a couple of others on the call, and it's yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not too happy with some things, and it's just kind of the way it is. We probably won't discuss it here right now, but
sorry. Okay. I just want to make sure that the easement is not in federal reservation in Riverdale, but on the federal reservation side. That's what was really where I wanted to go.
You're correct. It's on city property. It's not on base property.
Okay, now see, that's where it gets confusing to me, because base property is Riverdale. Anyway, so and this is where it leads to, I don't know, some clarity. Anyway, never mind. I got the answer.
This is outside the federal installation into Riverdale City proper. Okay.
So if I walked up there and I looked at it, and the MPs wouldn't come and visit.
Correct.
Okay.
not
Thank
in
you.
there. Yeah, you can drive back in there. You don't have to go through a gate to get to our water tanks and stuff. So
Chief
It's all
Brinkman would be
about-
all over you, though.
Yeah, that's right. The MPs wouldn't get you, but the PD might get you.
yeah, it's all back behind that Roy Water Conservancy District thing there, which is actually outside of the base perimeter. So. Yes, the power lines that they're using the easement for eventually get over there to Northrop Grumman, so, and other facilities there. So, okay, we're okay with that. We did have a consensus. I think everybody was in favor of that. Move on to action item 4. Consideration of resolution 2021-08. This is approving the Riverdale City Water Conservation Plan update. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is just the latest revision of a plan that we've already had. It's very general. It kind of follows the outline plan that Weber Basin Water
What'd you say?
also is doing at the same time, so that we're kind of in connection with them. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Mayor, this is a motion from Arnold. Move to approve resolution 2021-08 approving the Riverdale City Water Conservation Plan. Update.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second for Hilton.
Thank you, Steve. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on this motion? Ms. May, would you pull the council on resolution 2021-08?
Councilmember Mitchell?
Aye.
Councilmember Ellis?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold?
Aye.
It's unanimous in favor. The resolution's approved. That was very well written too, Sean. There's a lot of information in there. I know I went through it some, but I'm going to go back and read some more. I thought it was a lot of good information about how we operate, where our water comes from, and just a lot of good data in there. So thanks for putting that together.
Thank you.
Move on to action item number 5, consideration of the well motor purchase and pump rebuild for $69,041. Mr. Douglas again.
Thank you, Mayor. So the last week in December, the motor on our main well number 1, actually burnt up. So as we was pulling the motor on that, we decided to go ahead and pull the pump, have it rebuilt as well while it was down, and the crane was already here to lift everything out. Naturally, we've done all of that. With the dollar amount, I just felt like I wanted to bring this to the council and have them see the dollar amount, know where we was at. We feel like we'll be able to pay for it out of this year's budget without having to do any changes. We'll just have to be careful what we do from here to the end of the year. But if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Please. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Just out of curiosity, what's the life cycle of the motor and the pump?
It really depends. I mean, there's so many different things that can affect it. Sometimes power bumps affect them, sometimes lightning. I think this one was around 7-8 years on this one. But we've had some that have been shorter lived than that. There's just no great rhyme or reason to them. There's just a lot of things that affect them.
And how about the pump? I'm sorry, the pump.
The pumps, we've had shafts that have broke on pumps in 3 years, and we've had some that have ran for 10 years. It's kind of the same thing. It's all underground. It's hard to really know. We do vibration checks on them. And sometimes we can see something coming like that, and sometimes we don't. It's kind of a crazy game. I think that's why nobody likes being in the well business, because it's so unpredictable.
Mayor, this is Braden. I had a question real quick.
Go ahead.
Hey, Sean, can you just remind me what we're doing for water these days? I mean, we're not going to drill the new well, but we're still using this well, and then we're just buying some from Weber Basin.
So we had the previous contract with Weber Basin for the like around 1,100 acre feet. We've now converted around 200 acre feet of Davis Weber water that we can have them treat for us and send down the pipes. And right now we're working with Weber Basin and the Bench Canal on transferring our Bench Canal shares so that we can pull them out upstream and also put them into the flow. And our eventual goal still, as we talked in the past, if we can, is to get to the point where we can turn that well over to Weber Basin, let them run the well, and then we just buy all of our water and not be involved with this type of situation. It's just like this. I mean, it happened at the perfect time. It was December. We can get by on the water. If this was midsummer, we would have been scrambling. And just with one, it's just really tough to get by. So that was also part of the reason for the pump rebuild. While we had it down, the timing was right. Just have everything back in the best condition we can going into summer. It's back up and running. We're pumping right almost the same as we were before, right around 2,000 gallons a minute. And it seems to be running really well, so it looks good.
Okay, thanks.
So you've already spent the money. You're just saying forgiveness, right?
Pretty much. I was pretty sure that you wanted water to drink this summer, so that's kind of where we're at.
I think you mentioned in the packet that this comes right out of your budget, so it's almost more of an information thing, isn't it?
It's just a large dollar expenditure, and I like to bring them in front of you so that you know what's going on there and that we're all on the same page.
No, that's great. Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Sean?
Mayor, this is Braden.
Go ahead, Braden.
So I'd approve the expenditure to rebuild the pump and the motor as explained in the packet.
Okay, that's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Mayor Hilton.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds to be unanimous in favor. Thank you. Move on to discretionary items for this meeting, council meeting. Have any discretionary business?
I have one, Mayor.
Okay.
I wanted to thank Chief Brinkman and Chief Shawley's people. They attended the death of my mailbox in my tree as someone ran over it. And they clipped the nipple off the fire hydrant, which is crazy that happened. But yeah, sent my mailbox up into my front door-ish kind of thing and shattered shrapnel all over the neighborhood. And they were spot on, took care of it. And so I personally used our public safety service this past week. So I just wanted to say thanks.
That's good. Nice to have them when you need them, huh? Although you don't want to experience that very often, I don't think. So.
Oh no, we're going to need the ambulance next time because the mailbox I'm building is going to be a bad mofo.
All right. Any other discretionary?
Mayor, I had one real quick.
Go ahead.
There was a little discussion on Facebook about the swim nights. Do we know what the plan is for those?
You still on, Rich?
I am, Mayor. Last year when Roy City elected not to open the aquatic center, at that point we reserved dates for this summer. So we do have 10 dates reserved for this summer. In fact, the main newsletter that Chris is putting together will include those dates. But once again, with everything in my department, we're planning all this different stuff, but it's all subject to Roy Aquatic Center being able to open and get the necessary permits from the health department. Not sure what capacity is going to look like. We really don't have a ton of information at this point, Braden, other than we do have dates booked.
That's great news. Thanks, Rich, and thanks for staying on top of that. That's all anyone could ever ask you guys. So that's awesome. So thanks.
I think they also ask about the splash pad too, and it's probably about the same kind of thing. What's that open Memorial Day scheduled usually?
So we're doing the same on it. We're ramping up to open just like normal. That'd be more Memorial Day. We do have to get a permit and approval from the health department. So as long as everything goes well that way, we plan on running that as normal this year.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. It's kind of the same thing we're doing with Old Glory Days. We're just thinking positive and take as it comes, but we do have to have the go ahead from the health department on these different activities. So, any other items? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Moving on to the RDA meeting. Tuesday, April 20th, 2021.
You still have to stay if you don't
For the
want to.
record, all board members are present as members of the staff. We have a period of public comment. Do we have anyone there, Shaylee, for public comment?
No, and I don't have any comments on YouTube and no emails.
Okay, nothing from you, Rich, either on text messages?
I don't have any text, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to presentations and reports. We don't have any consent items. This is consideration to approve the meeting minutes. We did have some discussion and corrections on this. And like the city council minutes, we're going to move those. They'll be on the next agenda for approval. It's got to be a little bit of work done. So we'll get that fixed and get them back to you. So move on to the action items. We have one action item tonight in two parts. The first is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding a budget amendment on the RDA Riverdale Landing project. Before we open the public hearing, I'm going to ask Mr. Kobe, do you have any comments on this before we invite the public?
Yeah, okay.
The information is in your packet, and we've discussed this in the last meeting. Unless there's any questions, I think we're in a good place to just move forward with
He was so funny when he
this.
called me. He's like, Miss Evans? Like, it's Miss Nay.
Yep.
And he's like,
Let's
no,
go
it's not.
ahead
Yes,
then. Do we have a
it is. You can
motion to
go through
open the
papers.
public hearing?
It is.
So
Mitchell,
Casey.
so moved.
Oh, sorry, Arnold.
I love it.
Second. Arnold.
Okay.
All right, thank you, though.
All
You're
in
welcome.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is now open. Do we have anyone there for public hearing, Shayla?
No, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mitchell, so moved.
Arnold, second.
Okay, we have
You
a
guys
motion,
finally
we have a
got it.
second. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing's now closed. Move on to the second part, consideration of the resolution R20-01, R2101. This is to amend the budget for the RDA Riverdale Landing project. You have any further questions for Mr. Kobe or Mr. Eggett? Do we have a motion on this resolution?
Arnold, motion to approve Resolution R 2021-01, amending the budget for the RDA Riverdale Landing Project.
Mitchell, second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. May, would you poll the council on the resolution, please? Poll the board, excuse me.
Mr. Hilton,
Aye.
Mr. Stevens,
Aye.
Mr. Ellis,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Arnold.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimous in favor. Thank you, Mr. Randall, for being with us tonight.
You're welcome, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Meeting would go quicker if he wasn't so talkative.
Right.
It's because they didn't ask him. Don't get him started, huh?
Right.
Just kidding, Jeff. Okay, move on.
I'm trying to help you guys get home and get done earlier. So
Good
You're
goal.
doing that. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. You do a lot of work for the city. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, let's move on to discretionary and discretionary business for this meeting. We have a motion to adjourn.
Mitchell, so moved.
Arnold, second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.